Amazing to have you here. And thank you for all those really nice shares in the beginning. That was great. Right, we are going to dive in to the 5 minute fix. And it's great to have you here. I'm really looking forward to sharing this insight with you, as well as the system. And we're going to dig into this 5 minute fix where we can turn any team from got it into did it. And you can do it without micromanaging or burning out in the process. So, the single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. And this is an incredible quote by George Bernard Shaw. And really, what makes it so powerful is what it acknowledges, which is that even the best leaders, even the best communicators, can fall foul to the simple illusion that when they talk, they're communicating. Now, the fact that you're here today with me shows me that you understand that there is a difference between talking and communicating. And that this goes and transcends throughout the entire organization. So this isn't even necessarily about being a leader or even the best leader, but rather just being a person of influence within your organization. Now, I remember being fresh out of university, and at that moment, I'd lived in multiple countries. I had experienced and communicated with different individuals from different backgrounds, including different cultures, ages, demographics, genders, and people at different stages in their lives as well. And in that moment, I remember thinking to myself that, I actually feel like I've traveled now. I feel like, yes, I can work with and communicate with pretty much anyone. And then I walked into a position, and more importantly, I walked into a position where I was being led by this individual, and they taught me something incredibly valuable. What they taught me was that it doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter how you feel. It doesn't matter what you know or even what you've experienced. When you're communicating, it is always about the other individual. Now, this is arguably the most powerful lesson I've ever been schooled in out of being in school. And it shifted my perspective completely. And it's taken me on this path, this roller coaster, this journey where I am today in a very fortunate position where I'm able to share my experiences and my knowledge and the practical real-time solutions that I've developed and have had other people develop with me so that no matter who you are and where you're leading, whether that's in business or at home, you can lead and you can communicate authentically and with positive impact. So let's see what's going on here. Now, I can imagine that you've said it 5 different ways, and you've said it 5 times, and in 5 different formats. So that's 125 variations on the same message. And it's probably still getting lost in translation. Because what happens is they land up going off to do their own thing, or what looks like their own thing. Sometimes it's mildly related, sometimes it's completely unrelated. Either way, it's not what you specifically needed them to do in that moment. Now, let me be clear as well. You're here because you're a capable leader, a capable individual, and I believe inherently that everybody has that capability inside of them. So this isn't really about you being clear or more clear. This is about acknowledging that the loop is broken and that in fact, with that broken loop, your instructions are being turned into noise instead of action. And that's what we're here to fix. You also don't need more theory. What you're looking for is a real-time fix, either with the team you've got now, the team you're going to be getting, or the team that you want to be getting. So we've all had enough paperwork, so let's shelve that for the second. Let's take a walk with me, if you will, to a moment where I was working at a very high level in the Red Arrows. Now, of course, I'm kidding. This is to illustrate a point, because the team I was working with at the time, I had an insanely high trust level with. And they were high performers, they were very smart, they were very capable, they were very talented. So in principle, they were my Red Arrows. Now, we would have meetings, as every team has meetings, and we'd do all the usual. We would set the agenda, we'd run productive meetings, and we'd set parameters, we'd focus in, we'd give accountability, we would go through all of the processes that we're told are needed and required for a productive meeting. And at the end of it, I'd assume everybody was clear, and they would assume that everything was clear. And then 2 days later, I'd walk back into the building, back into the room, and I'd find myself faced with a pilot, an astronaut, a ground soldier, and a SEAL. Because, well, there's always one. And everything was kind of either half-baked or half-done. In principle, there was a misalignment with what was required for the task. So what was needed just simply wasn't there. I think you'd probably agree with me that it almost drove me to the brink of madness. And in that moment, I was like, I don't understand because I was being clear. I really felt in my soul that I had been completely clear about everything. And so I went down that road of saying, well, maybe I'm not clear. Maybe there's something that's missing. And I went through what I said and I was like, no, I am being clear. So then I went down the other road, the road of it's them. They're not listening. They're not engaged. They don't want it. They don't understand it. They don't want to understand it. And I went backwards and forwards, tossing the ball. And I realized that no matter which road I dug into, it never felt like the answer. So one day, after yet another do-over meeting, it kind of all came to me. Because what I did was I communicated, I spoke, I instructed, I directed, and then I took a step back and I said, okay, let's watch what happens. And in that moment, what came to me was this. It had nothing to do with what I said, but everything to do with what wasn't happening after I stopped talking. So nothing to do with what I said and everything to do with what wasn't happening after I stopped talking. I'm going to take a walk down a different road with a different team in a different scenario. This team, disjointed, lack of management, lack of leadership, and just not on the page. Efficiency, effectiveness, down the tubes, in principle. I was brought in to say, get them all on the same page, get them all together, let's make this happen. And so I went about my usual processes, which is understanding the history, the direction where it needs to go, and looked at the processes and really fine-tuned and tried to make micro suggestions and micro movements. And naturally, I was met with a lot of resistance. And so I thought to myself in that moment, okay, well, again, we need to have structure here. We need to have clarity here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to digitalize this and to improve efficiencies and effectiveness. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to break the task out whilst I'm digitalizing. We're going to have the meetings. We're going to do all these other things. And in principle, I'm going to stack, but I'm going to feed them in at little micro doses. And they're just going to keep getting little micro doses of all of this. And so in principle, I went about trying it all. So we did more meetings. We did more check-ins, Teams meetings, emails, text messages, threads, tasks, project management software. If you could name it, I have probably tried it and stacked it. And also failed at addressing the core issue. For the record, other brands are available. And that was the thing. The core issue still remained, no matter how much instruction I gave, no matter how much direction I shared, no matter how much intensity and involvement I gave them. The core issue was still there because what I said they weren't hearing. And no matter what tools I put in place, I didn't get the traction. So in principle, you could say I walked into the room and I dropped the message into the room, instead of walking into the room and actually delivering the message. And in that moment of retrospective thinking and analysis, I realized that the best tools in the world, and there are some great things out there, and the best methods in the world, and there are some great methods out there. All of that's great. But if the loop was missing, it would fall fail and it just wouldn't work. And let me introduce you to two people. The first is Miss Skeptic, and for illustrative purposes and anonymity purposes as well, we're going to call her Sarah. And Sarah and I met at a networking event, and you have the usual preamble conversation. How's business? What challenges are you facing? And Sarah kept bringing up her team as a theme. So I sort of asked her specifically about her team. And she said, no, no, look, I, my team's great. They're smart, right? Um, but they just don't get it the way I need them to get it. And I've tried everything, and I think for some of you that might sound familiar. And so I did my usual, which was sort of just prodding a little bit. And I said, so, okay, well, tell me about when you say you've tried everything, what are the methods that you've tried? And he said, well, okay, well, we do daily stand-up meetings and we do quick daily check-ins. And when we have meetings, I provide detailed, structured email summaries. I've implemented project management tools, a bit like I did, thinking that more structure is going to help. And then she said, we also increased the open door policy across the leadership team to increase availability. Because by having an increased availability, it's naturally going to mean that people are going to come and ask questions first, rather than carry on down a road that's wrong. But obviously that wasn't working because they still were going down those paths. So I said to her, well, I have a thing called the Say It Once protocol. It's the first step to improving the situation. Let me explain it to you. And of course, I got the typical response. So she gave me that look. Oh, here we go again. Eyes rolling. Yet another trick. And basically the long and the short of it was that she said to me, look, it's too simple. It's not going to work. It's just too simple. So I said to her, look, you've got nothing to lose because you've tried everything, right? So let's try this and let's see, and hopefully it works for you and you can check in with me. And if you need a little micro adjustment, we can do that. So credit to her. She tried it. And a week later, I got a message and an email. She's like, no, we have to talk. I don't understand because I'm barely repeating myself, if at all. And the meetings are faster. The production is quicker. I just don't quite understand. I don't understand why. I don't understand how. And so we jumped on a quick call and I said to her, after we went through it, I said, look, as a highly ambitious individual in a modern world, when things are not being received, we naturally break it down into its components. The thing is that when we break it down into its components and into its constituents, really, what we're doing is we're increasing the level of complexity. And so actually things are more easily lost by doing that because we're creating the fog. So sometimes the thing that feels too simple is exactly the thing that we've been missing. And I'm fortunate to say that she's a client today, and this is just the first step for her. The second person is Mr. Scattered, and this is Raj. Again, anonymity's sake, his name is Raj. Raj is a little bit of a different individual. He came to me, and he's operating a fully remote team across various time zones. And in principle, you could say he's managing in a cross-functional chaos, or at least that's what he was managing in. And a little bit like Sarah, he came to me saying, yeah, my team's great. They're amazing people, individuals, and they're fully committed. In truth, the asynchronous with the time zones and the messaging platforms, and it's just like, it just kills the clarity. It kills the communication. And, again, said to me, I've, tried it all and nothing's working to get everybody on the page. So I said to him, tell me what you tried. And yeah, he had a proper go. He's done individualized Slack threads. He's done Loom updates. They were so far behind at a point where he said, well, we're just going to do a no meeting Monday policy. So there were no meetings on Monday. And so everybody would walk in, smash out their tasks and catch up in principle and launch on the Tuesday. The problem with that, of course, is that actually what happened was it created more chasing and less clarity in that. So by the time we were speaking about this, Raj was looking at me saying, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't need another framework. Frameworks are not going to do anything right now. So what I really need is a system, and a system that my team can just grab and run. So I said, okay, well, let me talk to you about the Say It Once protocol and then see how that sits. And I spoke it through with him, and again, he sort of was like, okay, seems a bit simple, but at this point, I'm going to try anything. So, how do we roll this out? And we went about rolling it out. 2 weeks later, he came back to me and he was in shock. He just says to me, look, I'll be honest with you. The meeting times, they're cut down by 40%. Like we're literally almost spending half the amount of time in a meeting now. And he said, but more importantly than that, the project managers, the project owners, they've started taking the initiative before I even had a chance to follow up with them. So when I do follow up, they're like, oh yeah, no, we've done this, that, and then that's the structure and that's the report. And he was in shock. And when we really dug into it and really looked down deep into the process, we realized that it wasn't about where they worked or what they were working on, but rather on how connected they were to why they were doing what they were doing and the alignment with why they were doing what they were doing. And when they understood that, actually the other elements within the projects just made more sense to them and they were able to follow through. So without further ado, let's dig in to the Say It Once protocol. So it's 3 simple steps for one powerful shift. We're going to say it once, we're going to get them to loop it back, and then we're going to lock it in. So we're going to say it once and we say it clearly. We're going to get them to loop it back and loop it back instantly. And then it's going to get locked in, but locked in with confirmation. Now I'm going to walk you through each of these steps. And by all means, drop into the comments now your ideal before and after situations in terms of what you have said in the past as to how you would like it to be received. So, for example, moving from, say, let's make sure that client presentation is ready by next week to, Jamie, please confirm what's needed and when you're going to send that version to us by. So that's the sort of language difference that we're looking at here. And we can then, at the end of this, in the live Q&A section, we can go through some of those comments together and maybe workshop some of those scenarios, for lack of a better phrase. Okay, so step 1, say it once and say it clearly. One of the biggest things with leaders that I've always found is that they think they're being clear. Now, that's a bit of a contentious statement, I'll be honest, but it's true. Leaders think they're being clear when quite often they're not. And it is the very thought of, I think I'm being clear, where vagueness creeps in. And it creeps in very silently. And so silently that eventually when you look at the follow through, it's being killed. Now, why is this a problem? And how does it come about? It comes about, and it's a problem because there's no anchor. There's no anchor, there's also no direction, and there's no ownership. So this is about being more than just concise in the message, but rather being precise. We want to give a direction that is clear, it's action orientated, and there is anchored ownership. Less words isn't better. More words aren't better. Precision itself is something else entirely. It's something different. And precision might mean less, might mean more. In all fairness, it doesn't really matter. Precision itself is just, it's like we get this advice. Oh, no, you have to say less. And then you get advice, oh, you have to say more. Well, no, you just have to say what needs to be said in the way that it needs to be said. Okay, because we don't need to speak louder or longer. We need to speak with focus. Focus on the what matters, why it matters, and why now. I'll repeat that. What matters, why it matters, and why now. Because this gives us an opportunity, this gives us a chance to move from, we need to get this done soon, to, hey Jules, can you confirm when the final brief will be in our inbox? Now, I'll be point blank honest with you. Like, I've been guilty of this exact thing, which is why I know this works, because in part of how this method has been developed, because I remember a while back I was pushing through a big contract and it was a potentially big client, lots of business on the back end, repeat business. And, it was a tight deadline because, of course, it's life. Everything's pretty much a tight deadline. And I said to my team, I called them together and I was like, right, guys, girls, right, This is the priority. This is what we have to do. And let's just make sure it's all ready by Monday, please, because that timeline is really that tight. And everybody was like, yep, got you, Sky. All good. We're great. Let's crack on. We know what we're doing. And came Monday, I walked in and in principle, nothing was done. Well, I mean, 10 things were done, but nothing of relevance to the client had really been done. So, and instead of getting wound up in the situation, instead of letting myself immerse it into the moment, I just took a step back and said, okay, why has this happened? Because if I can't rectify this right now, I'm going to lose this client forever. And also, how will I get the next one? So I went through everything with each individual and on their own, went through what has been said, why had been said. And in that moment, it all kind of came to me in that I hadn't named the deliverable or the owner or the deadline for something specific. And that moment gave me the clarity to say it's not about saying it, it's about locking it in place. And that goes into step 2 and the importance of step 2, which is where the loop happens, where the loop begins. Because this is the moment where clarity can get confirmed before anything else slips. Now, I want to be clear here. We are asking for them to reflect back what they heard, but we are not asking for them to be a parrot. I don't want to hear, oh, just to confirm, repeat back to me. You're not listening for an echo here. What we're listening for is confirmation with context, right? Because that instant clarification enables us to gather information on if there's misalignment before it actually happens. So this step has to be created in a zone of safety. We don't want to spotlight anybody. This is not an interrogation, right? So if you could think of step 1 as a moment of precision, step 2 is where we create alignment with that precision. So I go back, this isn't about testing them. We want to create a shared clarity before anything gets lost in the moment. So, the other thing I have to point out here, please stop looking for the mistake. I implore you, please stop looking for the mistake. Right? If you actively engage with an individual, if you actively in listening to an individual, I promise you, you will hear the mistake. It will be evident to you. Right? Because remember, we're trying to listen for what do they understand? What are they owning? And when will it happen? And if you're listening for those things, you'll know if one of them hasn't been heard or one of them has been heard incorrectly. And then you can go back to step 1 and say, right, okay, let's go through this one more time because I've seen you've said this and that's not quite what we're going with this. Let's bring it back and you can start that again. So this is why when I'm having one-on-one meetings with somebody, all distractions away. I'm not looking at the laptop screen. I'm not looking at my phone. Obviously, if it's a Zoom call, I have to look at a laptop screen. But you get my point. It's that it's distraction-free zones and zoning in on that individual and saying to them, right, I'm here. I'm listening to you and I'm listening for context. I'm not listening for a parrot. I'm not listening for you to say the words back to me. Because if you say the words back to me and say, okay, well, tell me what that means to you. Like, what are you doing with that information? And so this is also why I specifically don't use phrases like, tell me what I just said. Because instantly that's back on the hairs, back of the neck hairs go up and it's fight or flight zone. And basically in that moment, people are thinking to themselves, I just have to say exactly what they said and then I'll be free from this office space. And that's not what we're after. So instead it's using phrases like, can you confirm what you're taking away from that? Well, that's great, so what's the first step then? And just so that we're on the same page, how are you thinking about approaching that? Single prompts and simple prompts that will show you instantly whether you've been heard or nodded at. So, because we want to move from this, okay, understood, need the next draft, working on it, to, so you want the draft done by Thursday morning and you will review it by the end of the day, question mark. Because this is the other point, is you kind of want them to answer a question with a question, because that's going to allow you to get into step 3. So the aim here is to focus the listener on being action orientated and ownership orientated, We want to reinforce positive motion into it and remove any of that sort of quiz type feeling associated to it. If we can signal collaboration in the moment, it creates that safety space where they'll actually tell you exactly what's going on. So, and that means we have to make sure that we're not approaching it from a top-down instruction level, because that's also going to invite the response. And the response will come because there's no pressure anymore. And that's going to give you, as the leader, insight into alignment or misalignment. Are they on my page or not on my page? And all done without confrontation. So that leads beautifully into step 3, which is really, this is the power moment. This really is the power moment. And here we get an opportunity to lock things in place, right? So the loop becomes action, if you will. And we want this to be done not with a threat, but with clarity and confidence. So consider this the moment where the team member takes the reins and tells you what's going to happen next, not the other way around. Because when they state the next step, you've created shared ownership, not vague agreement. Now, obviously, that's going to be done not in writing, it's going to be done verbally, but they've committed to you in that moment. So the critical things to remember here are that you are not forcing a deadline. You are creating space for them to declare what that is. So again, listening with context, what we're listening for here is clear action, named owner, specific time frame, forward tone. Because what that creates is accountability, commitment, actionable agreed next steps. It leaves no space for interpretation at all. We want to be able to move from, sorry, I thought that you, to, and, but you said, to, got it. I'll send the version by 10 a.m. Thursday. Let's consider a natural flow from steps 2 to 3 before we actually create the whole loop, right? So if you recall, the question was, or the question back at the end of step 2 rather, was that you wanted the draft by Thursday morning and you'll review it by the end of the day. You confirm that with, exactly, that's right. You then have to prompt. Now, most leaders stop there. They go, oh, okay, yeah, cool, he's heard it, or she's heard it. I'm going to go this way. Well, but there's vagueness in there. And that's what we're trying to suggest here, is that we have to cut out that element of vagueness. So the vague point here can be cut out with a simple prompt beyond that. So we want to prompt ownership and action back in that response. So exactly that right is the first confirmation point. You then need to prompt something. They will then confirm it on the back end. So step 3's got several components in it, but it's a confirmation. It's confirmation, confirmation, confirmation. So simple lock-in sort of prompts, if you will, and it depends on your demographic. It depends on your situation. It depends on everything in terms of you have to understand who you're talking to about what. So for example, if you're in an async environment, right? So we're talking time zones. Remember Raj's situation, modern teams, etc. If it's a bit more of a casual vibe, you might be prompting with, cool, so what's your first move? Right? So they said, oh, by Thursday, you want that by Thursday? And you say, exactly, that's right. So cool, what's your first move? And they come back with something. If you're looking for commitment on a timeline, you might prompt in, when do you think you'll have that version ready by? Or if, okay, one question I get, particularly for people in project environments, because project environments tend to be quite fast-paced, hard-hitting, heavy language type spaces, is literally you can go in with the what should I expect from you next, or when should I, so what should I expect from you next is probably the question you'd ask. And although in some environments that might seem a bit heavy, the reality is that that's actually really powerful for a project environment space. Now, if you are trying to open the space for an initiative or a thought process, you're basically trying to an innovative type approach, Well, in that moment, you might be asking something like, okay, so how are you thinking about tackling that? And they're going to confirm it for you. I also work with a few people who, although they might not be micromanagers in the traditional sense of micromanagers, they will openly admit that they do have an element of micromanagement about them, and they're trying to get away from that as much as possible. So a prompt in that situation is, do you want to lock in a time to check back in? Now, as that person who's asked that question, you have to be comfortable with them saying, no, I got you, it's all good, and walk away. So, but at least it gives you that moment of, if I needed an element of control, I'm still getting that, if that makes sense. So let's do a full arc here from step 2 into the end of step 3. So they say, so you want the draft by Thursday morning and you'll review it by the end of the day. You say, exactly. Then you prompt, when do you think you'll have that version ready? They lock it in with, I'll send you the version by 10 a.m. Thursday. Perfect. Closed. Now, if they were to reply with, well, I'll send you Thursday morning. Okay, cool. When specifically Thursday morning? Again, or you say, okay, that's great. Do you have a time in mind so that I know what to expect? Again, you're not being confrontational, you're picking your audience, but getting that like, oh yeah, no, it'll be 10 a.m., 11 a.m., that's when you're going to get it. They've committed, right? That final lock-in, that is the one. That is the one that gets you to the point of commitment, to that next step. And yes, we'd all like it in writing. Let's be realistic. Verbal's how you're going to get it, right? But in principle, what we want is that shared agreement and a non-assumption. So let's do a little bit of a before and after piece. And let me show you how it actually plays out. So this is the scenario. The scenario is you're leading a meeting and it's a client meeting and you need a presentation done by the team because everybody's pulling in on this one. And you have to review that presentation before the meeting. It also needs to be ready by next week. Okay. So your before, you might say, okay, guys, that's great. Thank you very much. Let's just make sure that client deck or presentation is ready for next week. Now, on paper, there's nothing really wrong with that statement, is there? Because let's make sure the client deck is ready for next week. Well, okay, so everybody's got to make sure something's happening and it's all about the client deck and it's got to be ready next week. The problem with that is there is vagueness 3 ways here. And so what happens is you get, well, who's doing it? And what's actually ready? And when exactly does that need to be ready by? And also, why am I doing this again? So you can just cue the follow-ups and cue the confusion and cue the spiral. And this is what I see so often with so many people that I work with. Now let's consider what it looks like in this situation. Now, this is the exact same scenario. So you're leading a meeting, right? It's client meeting. You need to review this presentation, the slide deck, before the meeting is taking place, right? And it's got to be ready by next week. Now, the difference here is now we're assuming here that you've already done the work to get the protocol in place. So people are used to you asking these sort of questions. And they're now in the state of the loop, right? They're almost expecting the state of the loop and everybody's bought in to how this new process happens. So step 1 is, Jamie, I need the version ready by Tuesday, 3 p.m., please. It's a specific person with a specific outcome at a specific time. Jamie then goes back and says, cool, got it. I'll draft version 1 to you and send it to you by 3 p.m. Tuesday then. Okay, so this is me now going, okay, so has he actually, context. Remember, we're listening with context. So he's understood that it's draft 1. He's understood that he specifically needs to get it done. And he also understands that it's got to be done by 3 p.m. on Tuesday. Okay, and then we'll lock it and say, perfect, I'll review it on Tuesday evening, so we're ready for the client comments by Thursday. Now there is a shared plan. There is zero ambiguity. Everybody's moving forward. Nobody's chasing. And that is the protocol in motion. That is the protocol in action. It's not about saying more or even saying less. It's about saying it once and knowing that it's been heard, received, landed. So where to from here? Well, give it a go. You got the fix. You've seen how it works. You've seen that it can work for other people. So there's no reason why it can't work for you. And I'd like to hope and believe that you're already thinking about a conversation that you maybe should have run differently, or one that you're going to run differently tomorrow. And that is the power of clarity. It's clarity in motion. And I want you to consider this your first step because it really is your first step to creating that team alignment that so many individuals and so many leaders and managers and modern professionals just would love to have on a day-to-day basis. Now, in this moment, you're going to give your team a sense of shared direction. They really are going to be bought into being on your page. But now, of course, you can have this more consistently. You can have it work not once, but every time. And that's what I built for the Team Alignment Accelerator. Because it's not about necessarily just clarity, but actually creating a culture of traction. A culture where communication sticks and so does performance. A culture where there isn't micromanagement, but rather more engagement, more agreement, more enthusiasm, more performance, more alignment. And so, of course, your choice is that you've got the tool, use the tool, and get your better outcomes today. Start today with it. I implore you, please, just have a go. I'd love it to work for you. If you are ready and you are in a space and you want to take that next step, then I invite you to come into the Team Alignment Accelerator. Now, this isn't a framework. I was going to say this isn't just a framework. It's not a framework at all. It's a system. We're creating systems here, a full reset system. So if that Say It Once protocol really resonates with you, here's what you get with the Team Alignment Accelerator. You get 4 weekly live coaching sessions, right? These are 60 minutes of tactical, live, no fluff leadership work. You also get lifetime access to what I call the Vault. And in the Vault, you're going to find templates, tools, scripts. You're going to find conversational planners, reset checklists, email scripts, and so many more. And that's lifetime access to that. You're going to get 2 15-minute real-time coaching boosting sessions from myself. So that's literally you and me. You're stuck on something in a moment, in real time. We jump on a call, 15 minutes, right? Let's talk, get it solved. You also have access to a private online community. Now, this is a moment for you to ask questions, get clarity, connect with the leaders in a space, because ultimately I'm a firm believer in diversity breeds brilliance. And so actually getting advice from other leaders and other people who are in different businesses and different realms actually can give you a much far higher level of awareness and solutions to everything than what you'll get from somebody within your own industry. And as a bonus, for the first 10 signups, you're going to get a one-to-one 60-minute private session with myself where we deep dive into any challenge, any blocker, whether that's work-related or not. And all I ask for in this is that you show up. I ask for your commitment to attend a 1 hour per week live coaching session and to apply those insights, and that's at most 30 minutes of sort of at-work integration. And hopefully it doesn't even feel like it's at-work integration. It should just click and move with it. And with that willingness to implement and reflect and provide, I'm also asking for you to provide honest feedback to me. And if it helps, a testimonial would be wonderful. Now, obviously there's a value attached to everything, and you can see for yourself what that value is. So in terms of each of the individual components, obviously the Vault is valued at $297. Now, this is all US dollars, by the way. Now that's lifetime access, so that value is highly deflated. It's much more valuable than that. And also, I've not put a value on the online community because I'll be honest, I'm part of some online communities that I don't participate in, and I don't get any value out of them whatsoever. But there are some online communities where I put a load of work in, and I get a load of results back. And so, an online community, is only as powerful as you'll let it be for you, and if it's resonating for you. Now, all of that together is valued well over $1,000. I also remember being in a position where I thought to myself, you know what? I'll be honest, it's great, it's a lot of value, love it. $1,000 is steep. And so I didn't want price to become a barrier. So I'm not going to be retailing it at $1,000. I'm going to be retailing it at 497 US dollars. Now, one thing I didn't mention earlier is that I'm currently actually in a beta phase of this program. So I want that feedback so that I can improve the program, make it the best program possible. And so with that in mind, as it's in beta, I'm only going to charge 97 US dollars for these first 10 founders. Because I'm asking for things in return. So it's only fair that it's done that way. Now, I'll be honest and say that this is absolutely everything I wish I had years ago. And right now, it's available to you for less than the cost of an unproductive meeting. So if you're ready to connect, if you're ready to take your communication and lead with that positive impact, I'd love to have you in the room. If not, you've got the Say It Once protocol. Run with it. See how powerful it can be for you. So with that, let's talk. I'm going to open the floor now and I'm going to stop the recording, jump off, and we can just have a bit of a forwards and backwards, and really drop your comments into the chat or raise your hand and I'll bring you to the front. Let's live workshop a few situations for you. And let me just say that if you're thinking it, somebody else probably is as well. So I don't believe in silly questions or stupid questions. I don't believe they exist. They're just questions. And so let's dive into it. Thank you very much. And I'll stop now.